Right, ladies, gentlemen, gamers, and fellow TikTok enjoyers, welcome back. So, it's been a little bit of time since I made the last TikTok reacts, and the TikTok reacts of last time was specially themed to include all the stuff happening about the app itself, TikTok. And since that's happened, we've had some bill draftings to try and really ban it, and not only ban it, but also have the government be able to do whatever the fuck they want, cancel VPNs, all of the sort. I'm not going to go in depth on that though, because even though this is a video about dark dimension TikToks, that's going to take too long, and I want this one to be rather quick. But to put it this way, we have a lot of TikToks to go through of the same nature as last time. This is going to be an episode of like the Jedi Strikes Back of the famous movie, where the Jedi Strikes Back, where we get a second dose, a second helping of TikToks related to what we did last episode and the one before that, banking stuff and the banning of TikTok. So it's mostly going to be about those two topics, but I thought I'd shed some more light on them anyway, since there's been more recent developments and more people have reacted to it that are not me. But I'm also going to react to it too. So we're going to start off here with some Santa Claus. Now, there's also one last thing I want to say before we get into it, because like I said, I don't want these to go too long, even though they're going to get a little long. As you can tell from the right here, the comments being fucked up, I tried to get the old TikToks again, and it did not work. It almost crashed the browser. So I have found a workaround to getting the old TikToks that I wanted to react to. It is going to be a bitch and a half to do, but I can do it, and that's literally just going on my phone and just resending them to myself. It's a lot of stuff I'm gonna have to do. I don't know if I even have the will to do it, but there was a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of solving the issue. It's to be determined if we're gonna do it. But anyway, we got Santa Claus here, and even Santa Claus is going to tell us about what he thinks of the TikTok ban. Let's fucking hear it. Here we go.
The resident of North Pole, Alaska, and a staunch defender of free speech,
Free
I want
speech,
to inform
baby.
my audience about my petition for the TikTok ban bill.
Tell
This
us, Santa.
legislation seeks to give the president the authority to bypass the courts and ban something that has been protected multiple times under the First Amendment right to freedom of speech.
Damn
this
straight.
petition asserts that any member of Congress or the Senate who votes in favor of a bill leading to the banning of TikTok will face consequences from those who signed the petition. By signing,
Yes.
you pledge to vote against that member
Yes.
of Congress or the Senate,
Yes.
opting instead to vote for in-party challengers or opposing party. Let's give ourselves a gift and protect our right to freedom of speech.
Like, how the fuck are you gonna go against Santa Claus? How the hell? Like, if it wasn't serious before, we know it's serious now. Even Santa Claus is on our side. But anyway, yeah, so I said this last episode too, where the biggest thing that we can do to affect anything, even though we're not rich, even though we don't have influence, and even though, you know, we can't murder someone to whack someone else like the rich people can, we have one thing over them, and that's that they need our votes. They need us. So if we pledge to vote for the other guy, no matter what, like, we don't even know who's running, we don't know what their policy is, we don't know what they're doing. All we're telling them is in the primaries, if you get rid of something we like, we will vote against you specifically for the opposite person. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to heel and bark for the treat like a good fucking dog. Because if nothing else, they want what they need from us, which is number one, our money, which they take forcibly. But number two, our vote, which they need to convince us of. Now, granted, I don't think this is ever really going to do anything. If it does get extreme, maybe it'll scare them to doing something, but I honestly doubt it because the lobbyists have paid them so much money. I think they can all not run for office again and be completely content. But anyway, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the only defense we have against this sort of thing. But yo, even Santa's on our side. I really just want to show it for Santa. Like, we have good old Saint Nick, man. Even good old Saint Nick likes TikTok.
How can
Okay, so this one is for the banks. I remember this one. This one's really funny. I typically don't really like South Park, but this one exemplifies really well what I was saying about the banks. And like I said before, this is an episode that's just going to be like Attack of the Jedi, where it's just going to be proving what I said. Because more people came out and they said things similar to what I was saying.
I help you, young man?
I got $100 check from my grandma, and my dad said I need to put it in the bank so it can grow over the years.
Okay, so let me just say one thing right here, and this is gonna again lead to the dark dimension. Back in the day, this was probably true. You could put $100 in the bank, and back in the day, the interest rates were like 15% and higher. So realistically speaking, even though you're only putting $100 in, you leave that for a couple years, it could very well lead to being 1,000. Obviously you're gonna have to leave it, but it could get to 1,000. Nowadays, when the interest rates are like fucking 3%, yeah, you'd be better off using that $100 to buy some food.
Well, that's fantastic. A really smart decision, young man.
Be
We
smart,
can put
very
that
smart.
check in
Give
a
it to the
money market
bank.
mutual fund. Then we'll reinvest the earnings into foreign currency accounts with compounding
Wow,
interest, and
compounding
it's gone.
interest. That's great. Oh, wait, what? Oh,
What?
It's gone. It's all
this is
gone.
people's reactions to SVB Bank, by the
What's
way.
all gone?
The money in your account. It didn't do too well. It's gone.
It didn't
What do you mean? I
too
have
well.
$100.
Not anymore, you don't. Poof.
Well, what can I do to get back
I'm
my...
sorry, sir, but this line is for bank members only.
I just opened an account.
Do you have any money invested with this bank?
No, you just lost
No.
it all.
Then please stand aside for people who actually have money with us. Next, please. How can I
So
help
yeah,
you?
pretty much that's how the banking shit basically happened. Obviously, it's an overexemplification, but that really is what happened. They invested the money stupidly, they lost it. Now, I don't know about their client service relations, but I bet you people weren't too happy about that. And the CEOs, this is the biggest thing. The CEOs think they could get away with this shit. It's fucking so stupid. Like, they do this thing to make themselves richer, and then they actively pass things in Congress to make sure people stay poor and don't make as much money. And they actively spend a lot of their money lobbying, because at the end of the day, it's not as expensive to lobby to keep the laws in their favor to make them more money, because that's going to lead to them saving money instead of just actually paying people a livable wage. Because even though they can afford to do both, they're so greedy they'd rather pocket more money for God knows what, because they just want to see the number higher, but that leads to actual physical real world people suffering. I don't think the way the rich people live their lives is going to dramatically and drastically change if instead of making 9 billion they make 5 billion and then they pay people a livable wage. If anything, if we're talking about like ethics, I think it was Kantian ethics or something, it was where you quantified like good and bad. There's going to be a lot more good being done if you take the 5 billion instead of the 9 billion and you provide a lot more people with livable pay than you having 9 billion. Because how is your life going to change from 5 billion to 9 billion, right? It's not going to change almost at all. But how are people's lives going to change from like making not enough to eat to finally enough to do shit? It's going to change drastically. So it's just really sad, people are greedy. Next.
Yesterday, Congress showed us one of the biggest national security threats
Oh, this guy's good.
that faces our nation, and
Look
it's
at
not
this.
this guy. Not
Yeah, and it's not TikTok either.
only did we see several reps display that they do not see a distinction between a sovereign nation of Singapore and the nation of China, but we also saw that we have dozens of politicians who will easily buy into the ideas and
they're
talking
paid
points
for.
of lobbyists, which makes them
Yup.
easily purchasable by
Lobbying.
anyone with the dollars to spend on lobbying.
And the worst part is, with other TikToks we've seen, a lot of stuff is owned by the same people. So who are the people who are lobbying? It's the select few same people.
It should be scary to all Americans, because if Meta can buy off our politicians, why can't adversaries? After all it took was picking the right lobbying firms and spending the right amount of money to reach all of these politicians.
Now, see, I would agree with him here. Like, I'd be scared of our adversaries like influencing us too. And I would say it can't happen because, as corrupt as the US politicians are, they're not going to do, well, some of them might, but most of them won't accept the money directly from Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin, right? Some of them definitely would. But the problem is it's done through a lobbying firm. So how do we know that the lobbying firm isn't accepting money from Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping? We don't. And that's the whole problem. It's done through an intermediary. It's just so disgusting that this is even allowed. The fact that this is allowed is because it exists. Its existence is fighting for it to stay. The fact that lobbying is here means they're fighting for themselves to stay because they're giving money to the politicians.
Over half the reps who sit on the House Energy and Commerce Committee have clear conflicts in their portfolios. But
Insider trading, baby.
But in examining their questioning, we can see that almost all of this questioning was pre-prepared for them, and many of them had never even read it before, struggling with very basic words like algorithm and data. There were reps that couldn't even pronounce the name of the CEO or the name of the app that they were questioning to begin with. But as we talk about national security, we should be more concerned about how easy it is to buy our politicians. And we should take notice of just how many reps bought into clear misinformation just because a guy in a suit with a check came into their office.
So this is what I, again, talked about in the last episode. A lot of stuff, like I keep saying, is just going to get reaffirmed. It's going to get brought up again. And that's the fact that a lot of the stuff here is plain view now. Because of the internet, because of TikTok itself, a lot of this stuff that is happening, that's scummy, that's stupid, that causes us to be in the dark dimension, we know about it. I just don't know when and if there's going to be any change, if people are going to decide, hey, this isn't right, let's actually do something about it. Because eventually, I honestly do believe, unless massive change is brought about by almost the entire population, with the way the government is, and I'm not arguing for anything extreme here, I just want that to be clear, you know, FBI listening in, I'm not a threat. But I honestly do believe with the way society is going, and me being the media major that I was, and knowing what the government does to control us through the media, and just in general with them restricting our rights as time goes on, I feel like eventually we will get to a point where we won't be able to fight back unless we do it en masse. And it's very scary. It is very scary. Dark dimension.
The question is, should they pay for the sins of their...
Oh, okay, so this is where not everything in this episode is going to be banking and TikTok banning related. Most things are, but this was a really good thing that hit me in the feels. And you know, I know, you know, usually I start the episodes off by saying I don't remember these TikToks, but now I'm going to try and keep more on top of these because if I let them stack up too long, I can't get to them anymore. So I actually do remember a lot of these. But this is Professor Galloway. I actually studied him in, guess what, my media major. But he's an interesting guy with some interesting ideas.
Their father and their grandfather, because a 19-year-old who doesn't have any prospects with just a college degree, without a college degree, who has an education system that's biased against them boys.
This is going to go in so many different directions, by the way. Like, oh my god. He's going to mention so many things that I have an issue with. Not with what he's saying, but like things in society that are just wrong. The first one right here, education.
They're twice as likely to be suspended for the exact same behavior as a girl, 5 times as likely if you're a black boy. You mentioned some statistics. If you're a man on Tinder, if you're in the bottom half of average attractiveness, you have to swipe 200 times to get a date. So you get confirmation. You have no value.
You have
we have
no
to have
value
an honest
as a
conversation.
man.
Mating dynamics are different for men and women.
Absolutely.
75% of women say that economic viability is important. Only
men don't care. I mean, you know, we're just horny, but still.
25% of men. Women mate socioeconomically horizontally and up, men horizontally and down. So the result is a lack of household formation. And essentially, there's nothing more dangerous than a lonely, broken young man. And
there's nothing more dangerous than a man who has nothing left to lose. A man who has nothing left to lose is one of the most dangerous things ever. And the worst part is, and he's saying it right here, we're producing too many of them. There's more and more of them. And like I said, we're going to hit a tipping point where things get so bad, and there's going to be so many people upset that things are so bad for them. Who knows what's going to happen?
We're producing too many of them. And finally, we're having a productive conversation, because who wants more emotionally and economically viable young men? Women.
Of course.
Advocating for men does not make you anti-women.
What a nice little conversation there. A little ray of sunshine in the dark dimension. I like how everyone in the comments is saying like, oh, Jordan Peterson. Oh yeah, it's pretty much similar. I'm not too familiar with Mr. Peterson, but at the end of the day, great ideas. A lot of stuff with men is very much against the societal norm. The societal norm is changing over time to be more, you know, men open for their feelings. Now, I feel like in some ways it's going towards a little bit of extremes where, you know, men are sort of encouraged to be overly emotional, which I don't think anyone should be overly emotional. Obviously, like, you know, keep it dignified and stuff, but it's okay to be a little emotional. But in today's society, that's very much not the case, although it is changing greatly. Just, I don't really know how fast, but pretty good ideas, Mr. Galloway said. Thank you, Mr. Galloway.
You sure about that? You sure about that? You sure about that? You sure about
This is so good. So I actually have BlackRock stock, so this is kind of upsetting to me, but it's true. This is what I said before. Like, a lot of people don't realize these things, but look at how many brands that you recognize here. I can say some off the bat: CNN, Fox News, Time Warner Cable, MSNBC, Home Depot, Cisco, Exxon, Verizon, Microsoft, Amazon. Okay, I don't know to the validity of this actually, because I don't think they're owned by BlackRock.
Sure about that?
BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street make up the majority of ETF industry. Okay, now that I'm
Sure
looking
about-
at this, okay, see, this one is realistic. This one is actually true. 182 beauty companies are owned by 7 major leaders.
About that? You
Now-
sure about that?
Oh, this is a big one too. This is a big one too. So, even though the beginning was a little iffy, because I
You
think it's
sure about-
definitely misleading, it's intellectually dishonest.
About that?
Just because these people own the majority of ETFs, I mean, they are hoarding wealth at that point because most people are investing into these ETFs. It basically goes to show that, I'm not just speaking nonsense, or if I'm speaking nonsense, a lot of other people are too. Because look at how much stuff is owned by the same fucking
You
few
sure?
people. Look at this shit, and these are the people who make the rules. Capitalism breeds competition. See, at the base level, this is where I sort of dislike these posts, because these posts, they're not entirely wrong with what they're saying, but they're leaving out the context. Capitalism does breed competition. Capitalism is good for competition. It's just extreme capitalism is bad, and we need a separate form, a hybrid form, I believe. But I don't want to get too political, so let's move on to the next one.
In today's story, studies show that procrastination is becoming a major issue among young adults, affecting their academic and professional success.
Oh yes,
With
this is
increased
definitely
lack of
copyrighted.
motivation, many are struggling to overcome this habit, leading to a decline in productivity.
Oh no.
Experts suggest that we solve this while we can before it's too late.
Before it's too late. So, some stuff I have to say about this. I think this is a major issue, not only with my generation, with the Gen Zers, but also the generation obviously before me, which is millennials, and the generation after me is probably going to have it worse. I don't even know what the hell they're called. But essentially, this has to do with technology changing times and stuff, right? But like it said, productivity is going down. However, this is where I think it won't really go down, even though a lot of people are less productive. Number one, because the working few will pick up the slack for the slacking many. I truly believe that, and I see it in the everyday world. The little few that actually do work, they will get pushed to the grindstone. They will have to pick up the slack of everyone else. And because they're such hard workers, they're gonna do it. At the cost and expense of their health and sanity, they're gonna do it. But also, the fact that, or not the fact that, but also because technology is increasing, technology is so good, even though people's productivity is going down, technology is picking up the slack too, which, why is technology there? It's to help improve our lives, not to improve production, not to improve, what is it called? Productivity. Obviously, that's a byproduct of it, but it's to ultimately make our lives easier. At least that's the hope, right? And it's the biggest question, and I think I posed in the last episode too, or 2 episodes ago. What's the point of all this technology getting better, increasing, leading to more productivity if we still are doing and working the same ways, the same hours, and nothing has gotten better for us? If anything, it's just gotten worse. Even though there's more profit and more productivity happening, it's even worse for us. Like, I don't get it. More money's being produced. The wealth gap is the highest it's been. People are really poor. People are not getting money, even though the most money's being produced. And things are getting cranked out at a super massive rate, but people still have to work long hours, sometimes 2-3 jobs just to make ends meet. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. Dark Dimension.
I've only been in Congress for a few.
Okay, so we've seen this guy before. This is Mr. Jeff Jackson from North Carolina. I think we've seen him before, but this guy, super Giga Chad. I take him the same as Mr. Chu from the TikTok CEO. I think they're both amazing individuals, and let's see what he has to say. I think this is going to be very informative. And actually, it actually opened my eyes to a lot of the other side of TikTok, and why it should get at the very least not banned, but at least looked at. It definitely changed my opinion of why TikTok was a concern. I used to think it's not a concern. It kind of is.
few months, but I have never seen a congressional hearing like the one we had on TikTok this week. It was brutal. Some of the questions were good, and some definitely were not.
Yeah, this is where he's obviously trying to be nice. Many were not. Some were good, a lot of them were not.
And the majority of complaints that were raised apply to practically all social media platforms.
He's one of the few people, you're going to hear why at the end. I'm going to save the surprise, but he is one of the few senators I actually respect. I feel like this guy, even if he is evil, because I do believe if you're a senator, 99% chance you're evil, you're doing some shady shit. But I honestly hope that he's the 1% that, like, is good. But let's see why.
All the concerns about declining mental health, especially for teenagers,
Really
about
bad.
the addictive nature of the platform, and about the sheer volume of data that's getting sucked up, which are all valid concerns, apply to many other platforms as well. Here's what's actually happening. It's been Congress's failure to pass a data privacy law, which it should have passed years ago, that's gotten us into this situation.
It's the fact that our country is run by dinosaurs who don't know what even Tic-Tac is or how Wi-Fi works.
And this week, TikTok became the symbol for a lot of general concern. There is a specific concern with TikTok about the potential for data access or algorithm influence in the hands of an adversarial government. The
CCP.
issue that keeps coming up is a law in China that was put in place about 6 years ago.
Now, I didn't know this law, and now that I know this law, I'm a little shook and I'm a little scared. But again, I do know this law because they mentioned it the last time, but in the last video. But basically, this law he's going to bring up, yeah, it is an issue. And, I'm just going to let him explain. I'm going to let the Mr. Jackson explain because he explains it very well.
That was designed to give its intelligence operations a lot more power. What it basically says is that if Chinese intelligence services tell TikTok that they have to hand over all of your data, then they have to do it, and they don't have to tell you that they did it. When this came up at the hearing, the CEO basically agreed that that's what the law says. Many bills have been filed in the last few weeks, but the biggest one would tell the Commerce Department to create a framework for assessing and responding to the risks posed by apps that are owned by foreign governments. Because even when we're talking about foreign apps, this isn't just about one app. Right now, if you look at Apple's App Store rankings, 4 out of the top 5 are owned by China.
How much you want to bet Genshin's on there?
We're going to need a way to deal with this going forward that isn't just a series of one-off proposals. If this legislation were to pass, one possible outcome could be forcing a sale of the app, which would mean a change in ownership. China doesn't want to sell, but they really don't want to lose out on the tens of billions of dollars they would stand to make in the event of a sale.
So they might do the sale just because it's going to make them money.
Which, if it happened, would allow the huge community of small businesses and folks who rely on TikTok to continue to use it. Also, this has happened before. There have been several times when we have told China they had to divest from companies to keep operating in the United States, and they did. A recent example would be Grindr. It might be several months before we
Okay, I actually didn't know that. That's actually kind of wild.
have a sense of what's going to happen next. There's a lot of anger and a lot of disagreement, but I think we can use this moment to produce at least one clear point of consensus moving forward.
What is that, Mr.
We need a data
Jackson?
privacy law that will protect us from all internet companies and
Yes.
all social media
Yes.
platforms, not just the
Yes.
ones that are owned by foreign governments.
So this is something that I very much agree with, and this is something a lot of people do. And this is something that I'd like to do along with Mr. Jackson that people don't do. Instead of looking at one of the results of the problem, let's look at the root of the problem. One of the results of the problem is TikTok. What is the root of the problem? We don't have privacy and data, laws that will govern everything. Because if you solve the problem with just TikTok, like he said, there's other apps that this is an issue for. So we can't handle it on a one-by-one case basis. We have to solve it and strike at the root. And he's doing so.
None of these social media companies have an incentive to stop vacuuming up all of our data because for them, we're talking about a lot of money. And speaking of money, there was a huge lobbying effort around this whole hearing.
And this is why I like this guy.
And that's one of the reasons I don't take corporate donations. Not from TikTok, not from Facebook, not from any corporation. And that's why I don't own any individual stocks as a member of Congress. And it's why I walked you through all of my personal finances in a video about 2 months ago. I've taken those steps so that in moments like this, I can just level with you and be transparent about where things stand. And frankly, I don't have to worry about the influence of corporate money because I don't take it. So that's where things stand, and I will keep you posted.
Thank you for keeping us posted, Mr. Jackson. Now, one thing I'm scared for is, yeah, sure, corporate can influence him, but if they can't influence you, you know what they do? they whack you. But anyway, yeah, pretty good video. He explained things very well. And he obviously put out the concern. He didn't actually address the solution to it, which is what TikTok is saying, but I believe that's addressed in another video, but I'll say it here. Basically, the idea is that TikTok understands that this law is bad. They even acknowledge, like, yeah, we can't protect your data if China does this. So what are we doing? We're moving your data to Texas. It's going to be owned in America, operated by Americans, so other people, namely the CCP or anyone, cannot access it. The problem is that takes time to move it over. And while they move it over, they're scared the Chinese might just copy it and, you know, have whatever they have at that time, which is still a lot. But yeah, pretty good. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Pretty good.
I'll be testifying before Congress.
So how did it go?
Tic-tac.
Okay, this shit is 7 minutes. I'm not watching this. I don't even know why I sent this to myself, but actually, let me see. I think I remember why.
The tic-tight bite dance.
Tick tight. Tick tight, by the way. Oh, give me 1 second. Thank you. Kalinita. Got some nice fruit to react to my videos with. Oh my god, look, here's the stupid bitch from Florida. Excuse my language, but oh my god, she's so stupid.
We have to be more specific.
Yes. It was a complete embarrassment. For
It
5
was.
hours with only 3 10-minute breaks, CEO was completely disrespected by a panel of U.S. representatives.
Yup.
Does TikTok support good? You're a logical man, I assume.
The chair lady, she said you got to tell the truth, okay?
I'm going to talk to you in some language that maybe you'll better understand.
It really is disrespectful, and I mentioned this before, but bruh, on the world stage, how must we look? The fact that it's obvious our government has been bought out, and that these questions are just stupid.
Everybody in this room understands that, except maybe you.
One thing was clear.
Damn.
The majority of our representatives obviously had no idea what they were talking about.
So, weekend, I'm sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation. TikTok.
The physical service.
By
is a
engineers,
private
bite
company.
dance, Communist Party.
No.
Like, he doesn't even care what's being said. He's just saying buzzwords.
Does TikTok
You can tell she's reading it off of something that the lobbyist gave her.
access the home Wi-Fi network?
Bro, that has to be one of the best highlights from this whole thing. Does TikTok access the home Wi-Fi network? Like, how is Mr. Chu supposed to respond to this?
How does ByteDance, how does TikTok, rather?
What? They grilled him on his company's private financials, information he was under no obligation to share.
How much money? What is your salary? Is that an accurate forecast?
How much revenue is generated per user?
As a private company,
Like,
we
they
prefer
can't
to keep
say
our
that.
compensation private. We are not disclosing our financials today. Congressman, we
Like, they make a shit ton of money, but they're not going to tell us how much they make.
Private company, and you're
Private
not going to
company,
tell me.
And he often had political talking points thrown at him with no ability to respond.
can I respond?
best.
We're going to move on.
Is it okay if I just very quickly respond?
Unfortunately,
Like, he's being so nice, and he's being so respectful. And you know what the tragic part is? The tragic part is here that this actually, in my eyes, makes China look better. Like, we look like the Neanderthals, and China looks like the civilized ones. I'm not saying they're Neanderthals either. I'm just saying, like, that's what it looks like here.
Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to respond to that very quickly.
the gentleman's time has expired.
You have given me no
Mr.
time to
Oaknoll
answer
to
your
California.
questions.
Like, look, he even says it. Like, he's not even allowed to respond. It's not even a question. It's a statement at that point.
Despite this repetitive pressuring and complete disrespect, he was actually quite open about his financials,
Do you have any financial debts or obligations to ByteDance?
No, I do not.
and he was considerate about legitimate security concerns.
We have heard important concerns need to address the problem of privacy. I agree with you. Our approach
Yes.
has never been to dismiss or trivialize.
Like, he tried his best, man. It's so sad that he tried his best, and this stupid, like, bill that's coming out that's, like, the Patriot Act 2.0. It's so it's, like, insane. I don't want to, like, talk about it too much, but let's just say it's the Patriot Act 2.0 where the government is allowed to ban VPNs. If you use a VPN, knowingly using a VPN, like, let's just say you use one by accident, which, how the fuck are you going to do that unless you use someone else's computer, right? And they have it. But if you use a VPN knowingly with this new ridiculous bill that if this gets passed, like, it is insane. By the way, remember the lady we saw at first in the first episode? Well, in the fourth episode.
I've only been in.
Oh,
testifying
fuck.
before Congress.
No! I pressed my scroll wheel by accident. Shit. But remember the lady who does news under the desk? This is,
Knowledge of state
and connection
hold
to
on.
the Chinese.
This is
Miss
her
or
right here.
trivialized.
Look, she's right there, yo. She's legit right there. We saw her before, and she mentioned she was sitting right behind him. But anyway, that messed up my whole thought process. But yeah, things are not looking too good. Oh, I remember. Basically, you could get thrown in jail for up to 20 years, and you can get $1 million fine for knowingly using a VPN. Not even what you're doing on it. You could just go on Google with it, but the fact that you used a VPN, instant like thrown in jail, $1 million fine.
Any of these concerns.
So what is the real issue here? Regarding the security concerns, there were a few representatives who actually took their job seriously and asked some legitimate questions.
India banned the use of TikTok. New Zealand, Canada, United Kingdom, Belgium, European Union.
See, this is going to show both sides. This is the video that convinced me, like, okay, there are actually some good concerns, but, you know, kind of spoiling the little surprise here. I think that Mr. Shu over here, I called him Mr. Chu before, I apologize for that. Mr. Shu over here, he really did address them very well.
All cited security risks with the company's data collection and connection to the Chinese Communist Party.
Like, you know what's crazy? Obviously, they're doing what everyone else is doing with our data. They're using it. They're profiting off of it. But I actually like feel like they're using it a lot more, maybe not transparently, but a lot more like unmaliciously than someone like Facebook is or something. Or excuse me, Meta. Like, I feel like Meta, Twitter, and all these other shits from like America, they're aggressively using our data to just sell us ads and profit off of us, for sure. Now, obviously, if China gets their hands on it, they're going to use it for way more nefarious purposes, but I think without us knowing if that's happening, America is definitely doing some fucked up shit with our data, too.
Our U.S. FBI director said that this is a tool that is ultimately within the control of the Chinese government.
Which it
screams
is.
out with national security concerns.
Which it
Mr.
actually
Chu,
does have.
How can all of these countries and our own FBI director have been wrong?
This is a good point. Lots of countries have banned TikTok, so what do they believe is the risk? China has...
See, I want to show both sides, because I hate when people are extremely charged to one side and they're sick of, well, I don't know if sycophants is the right word, but they're basically extremists, they're zealots. They won't even acknowledge the other side, even if it has a valid point. They will never see a valid point unless it's their own point. I don't want to show ideas like that. I want to show ideas from both sides, because obviously I do think there's a very true side, but the opposite side probably does have some merit, or at least some good points, because otherwise it wouldn't exist, or the conversation is just stupid to begin with.
has a law that requires its citizens and companies to provide intelligence data when asked.
China's 2017 national intelligence law states very
This guy looks really cool, though. This guy looks like a fucking create a character, like Boss.
clearly that, quote, any organization or citizen shall support, assist, and cooperate with state intelligence work in accordance with the law and maintain the secrecy of all knowledge of state intelligence work. In other words,
Nah. Alright, cool. That's all the good night's done for.
ByteDance, and also your TikTok employees that live in China, they must cooperate with Chinese intelligence whenever they are called upon.
Like, this is the biggest thing that's, like, the biggest nail in the coffin. And TikTok is hella smart for saying, okay, but we're transferring it all to Texas. You know, it wasn't fast enough. It should have been done before this, honestly. But, you know, they were reactive, not proactive. What can you do?
And if they are called upon, they're bound to secrecy.
We hear these concerns. We didn't try to avoid them or trivialize them. We built something where we take that data and put it out of reach.
But they own you. ByteDance owns TikTok, and the CCP owns ByteDance, because CCP owns everybody in China. And so by law, they can make them do whatever they want, and they say that by law, you can't tell anyone about it. But that's our concern. I want to say this to all the teenagers out there and in TikTok.
See, this guy gets it. He actually has a handle on how people view things and how everything's being viewed. This guy is smart. This senator is smart.
Influencers who think we're just old and out of touch and don't know what we're talking about.
Most of them are.
Trying to take away your favorite app. You may not care that your data is being accessed now, and with data comes power. They can choose what you see and how you see it. They can make you believe things that are not true. They can encourage you to engage in behavior that will destroy your life. Even if it is not happening yet, it could in the future. The long-term goal of the Chinese Communist Party is the demise of the American power.
Now, I don't know specifically about that, but I could believe it.
And that starts with our youth.
That is
At any
true.
moment, they could demand that all of TikTok's data be used to design an AI algorithm with the sole purpose of promoting Chinese interests and destroying our society from within.
That is something that could happen.
To address these concerns, Mr. Chu has begun an initiative called Project Texas, which aims to move all of sensitive American data into servers located in Austin, Texas. There it will be controlled by American employees underneath American supervision, subject to American laws and audited by American experts.
Yeah.
When that is done, all protected U.S. data will be under the protection of U.S. law, and under the control of the U.S.-led security team.
At that point, China literally cannot, unless they literally like fucking buy out like the people who are managing the data. At that point, they're buying out Americans. At that point, the Americans are the ones fucking themselves. It's not China. Well, it is China ultimately, but at that point, we have to become rats for it to happen.
This eliminates the concern
This guy has a really good, like this whole video, the 7-minute video, it's a really good summary of everything.
that some of you have shared with me. The TikTok user data can be subject to Chinese law. We expect that to be complete this year.
He has also shared a lot of proprietary information in regards to how the TikTok recommendation algorithm actually works.
We will also provide unprecedented transparency and security for the source code for the TikTok app and recommendation engine.
See, that's insane that they would offer that. That's honestly insane. You could tell they're like, it's sad to say it this way, but they're desperate to just prove their innocence.
This goes further, by the way, than what any other company in our industry have done.
Like, this is the sad part. Every other company does what TikTok does, except a little bit worse. The only, like, nail in the coffin is, you know, CCP. But this is the other part that's, like, really sad. It's that TikTok is going above and beyond what any other US company would do to try and, like, remain like okay in our eyes. It's so sad.
But will this be enough? That remains the
No.
question. U.S. senators fear that for the 9 months that it will take to be able to move all of the sensitive data into Austin, Texas, that might still be too big of a risk to allow
See,
TikTok
that's a
to
good
operate
idea.
outside of the
That's a very good, you know, that's a very good thought. It's a very good question.
U.S.
Do they have access to user data?
After
Yes.
Project Texas
Not after it's done right
is
now.
done, the answer is no.
As a result, some representatives are pushing TikTok to sell so that they become an American company. Mr. Chu argues that there is no evidence to support this, and there have been no good arguments made as to why Project Texas wouldn't bring any risk down to what is already an industry standard.
If you look at the subtext, this is something that every company could do. Frankly, I haven't heard any good reason why this doesn't work.
This is where I don't agree fully, because other companies can't get, you know, can't have China force them to give up their data. They could, you know, get paid off. They could certainly get bribed. But China literally can't just waltz into their office and say, give us the data right now. Like they could to ByteDance. They could literally do that whenever they wanted to ByteDance, and ByteDance cannot say anything. Obviously, we have whistleblowers and shit, but, you know, do you really want to, like, sacrifice your life to blow the whistle on this? I won't blame anyone for not doing that.
I don't think ownership is the issue here. American social companies don't
This is where I don't think this is the best point, though. Like, I don't know if you could really argue this, Mr. Chu.
have a good track record
Mr.
with data
Chu,
privacy
Chu,
and user
fuck.
security. I mean, look at Facebook and Cambridge Analytica.
Personally, here's where
Oh, he really clapped back at Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, which own a lot of shit, by the way.
I stand. The U.S. government has not convinced me that the Chinese government has abused its power in relation to TikTok. To do so, they would need to provide actual evidence, and so far they've only said that there's a DOJ investigation that's ongoing. The concern about the possibility that the Chinese government might interfere seems legit, though. Lots of countries from around the world have already
This video convinced me that it actually is.
recognized this risk, which is why they banned TikTok from being able to be on government devices.
That's our concern. Maybe you haven't done it yet, but my point is that you might have to.
And
Exactly. That is the best arguing point.
the American government, along with most of the world, recognizes that the Chinese government's treatment of Uyghur Muslims amounts to genocide.
The Chinese government has
Jesus.
persecuted the Uyghur population.
This is clear evidence that the Chinese government is willing to abuse its power. However, the stance that the U.S. is taking is inconsistent. They claim that the risk is that the Chinese government can coerce a Chinese employee of TikTok to access sensitive American data, and they have to acknowledge that that risk exists for all social media platforms.
A lot of it is speculation. It's something they could do. But if you look at the subtext, this is something that every company could do.
This leaves them with two options.
It's true.
Ban all tech companies from working with Chinese employees or find another solution. This is where I side with Mr. Chu. If the risks exist and separating ourselves completely from China is unrealistic, then the next best option seems to be transparency. I see TikTok's
Couldn't have
willingness
said it
to
better
accommodate for
myself.
U.S. concerns as a good faith effort. They have already publicly committed to not allowing any government to interfere on their platform, and they've invested $1.5 billion so far in Project Texas.
Jesus.
If there is a risk of Chinese manipulation, then then auditing for this risk seems like the next appropriate step. But this is just my opinion as a critical citizen. Of course, there are a lot of other topics discussed during the hearing, some of which were good questions with legitimate answers.
Does TikTok keep records of users' credit cards and passwords?
Are individuals with eating disorders show
Good
more
questions.
distressing content? What
This
about
is-
those with mental
I thought the whole like Senate hearing was just a shit show. It's honestly not as much as a shit show as I thought, and this really showed me that. I really do enjoy seeing both sides. And I'm not going to sit here on my high hill saying, oh, you know, my side is the only side that's right. No, the other side could have right points too, and I'm glad this video showed it.
health issues?
How quickly does your algorithm detect keywords or content that involve illicit drug trafficking?
And others that weren't.
Does TikTok support genocide?
Like, what the fuck? What kind of question is that? Who the hell would answer yes to that? That is such a leading question. It's so stupid. Does TikTok support genocide?
But this video took me 3 straight days to make, so I need a break. If you found this video helpful and would like me to summarize the other topics, show me your appreciation by clicking those side buttons, and follow along here and on my other platforms in case TikTok gets banned. And remember that you've been
He doesn't even know if it is. He's saying just in case.
invited as an active citizen to participate in this discussion.
We think engaged citizens are welcome and a valuable part of the political
Bullshit. You think the money from fucking Meta is valuable?
process.
Contact your representatives, or if you'd like, you can sign a petition that I have linked down in the description.
I really question if contacting the representatives or signing the petition, unless done enough by enough people, really matters. And, you know, that was kind of a leading question, too. It really doesn't. But anyway, I'm surprised we watched this whole thing. I forgot what it was about, I guess, because this whole thing was good. But yeah, engineer to educator, really good dude. Engineer to educator. He was an engineer, just like Caroline. Now he's an educator. Not like Caroline.
How we use the internet is about to fundamentally change forever, and it's terrifying.
Oh yeah, okay, so here's the bill that we keep talking about. This thing is disgusting.
This is Bill S686, also known as the Restrict Bill.
Oh, and restrict is an understatement.
Probably know it as the TikTok ban bill, but it does so much more than just that. It
It's
actually does more than
disgusting.
any bill I think we've ever seen. I encourage everyone to read it by going here and clicking the text tab, but here are the main takeaways. Foreign adversaries can change by definition, but a few are already listed. They are the People's Republic of China, including Hong
course.
Kong Special Administration Region, the Republic of Cuba, the Islamic
Ooba.
Republic of Iran, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and of course, the Russian Federation.
Basically
and
anyone we
Venezuela under
view
the
as an
regime
enemy.
of Nicolas Maduro Moros. I hope I pronounced that correctly. But these definitions can change at any time.
Of course.
The bill covers hardware technology like modems, routers, and home cameras, and virtual tech like VPNs. And
Like, bruh, as if they didn't go far enough with cameras, they had to include VPNs. Now, I'm gonna let him, like, talk some more, but this is very much... Excuse me, this is very much looking like some of the things we always, like, thought about other countries like China. And I'll get to it soon, what I'm gonna say
and
here.
basically bans them if they are manufactured by or used to contact and deal with foreign adversaries. Speaking of VPNs, using VPNs to bypass banned apps such as TikTok is made a criminal act under this bill. And the penalty, it's a minimum imprisonment
Okay, so I was actually wrong. It's not just using a VPN to go on Google, it's if you use a VPN to look at TikTok.
of 20 years and a minimum fine of $250,000 or $1 million, depending if you knowingly did so to access banned content. The bill gives the federal government the power to monitor any activity used by these suspected devices, virtual or otherwise. Essentially, they can monitor what you are doing at home 24/7 without even informing you.
What does that sound like? What does that sound like which we had a major problem with? Does that sound like China to anyone?
This includes things such as routers, video games, streaming apps, smart thermostats, ring cameras, basically anything that uses the internet. Now,
Wow.
the real terrifying part of all of this, as if that all wasn't terrifying enough,
It's disgusting.
is that the bill goes on to state that this will happen by the president appointing a secretary of communication. That secretary then forms a group on their own without any voter input whatsoever. This group can have meetings behind closed doors. They don't have to disclose anything. They
What did we get angry about that, you know, if they do it, they don't have to disclose anything about it? TikTok's giving information to China?
can ban and deem anything inappropriate or a risk to security at any moment in time. And if they do, they can go through your instant messages, your email.
They could see our nudes.
Text, basically anything that uses the internet, and they can censor it. So in summary, this
Like,
bill
are
can
you
effectively
kidding
ban
me?
anything the government deems inappropriate extremely quickly without warning.
Like, what is this Big Brother Orwellian bullshit?
Ramifications of this range from breaking up mass communication methods to even watching the cameras in your home, aka spying on you. It really is
while I shower.
That bad, and I am not speaking in hyperbole. Please contact your reps. I have
Like-
a video on my TikTok ban playlist on
Like, this can't be real. Like, this sounds like it's fake. Like, who would have thought the US would do this? Bruh, this is really the dark dimension. It's fucking sick.
I'd like to apply to be a Starbucks.
Okay, so now, this guy, the Washington Post guy, I think this guy's pretty funny, but let me just check one thing really quickly. Because if we're done with all the banking stuff, or at least the majority of it, I think, yeah, okay, yeah, so, honestly, I'll end the video here. Actually, yeah, I'll end the video here because I don't want this one going too long. But, overall, yeah. So this was just the episode where the Jedi Strikes Back, or Revenge of the Sith, I think it was called, actually. Revenge of the Sith, where, you know, we basically see the same shit, but it strikes back. But anyway, yeah, that's basically it. Hope you guys enjoyed the reactions. Like I always say, if you guys want to send me videos that can end up in this video as well, please send it to me, send it to Tecnics. And if it's good enough, I'll put it on the videos here, and we can react to it together. I hope you enjoyed. I stream every day live at Twitch TV/Tecnics channel. You can come over there, watch me, hang out with me live, ask me questions, poke me like a zoo animal, and enjoy ourselves. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and that's it for me.